Hello guys, so welcome to Abode. In this video, we'll be discussing what is Hibernate and why Hibernate is so powerful in these days where already JDBC exists. But first thing, you have to take one thing out of your mind that is Hibernate going to replace JDBC? So in my case, never, because all the all the ORM tools like Hibernate depends on JDBC uh, performance. So when it comes to Hibernate is purely a ORM tool which completely represents an object to insert data or create tables and do other CURD operations. So CURD operations in the sense create, update, read and delete. Now, what's Hibernate? I'll just make a size a little bit. So we'll discuss what are the advantages of Hibernate. Okay, what is an Hibernate? What is Hibernate? So we said, as I said, it's an ORM tool. We can say it's an ORM tool. ORM tool means object relational tool. So I have given a simple table here. I'll be just giving you an introduction. I'm not going to say a complete class here, but I'll just give you an introduction what is an ORM tool and how Hibernate actually works, comparing with JDBC. So to understand Hibernate, I strictly recommend you guys, or I not strictly, but I recommend you guys to have a basic understanding of JDBC. So JDBC is a prerequisite. Is so prerequisite is JDBC. Okay. Okay. To learn, to understand JDBC, JDBC. Okay. Now let me make it the same size. Okay. Hibernate. So JDBC is to understand Hibernate. Sorry. Now we'll compare a scenario how uh, the simple scenario of JDBC and Hibernate. So first we'll talk about JDBC. In JDBC, if you see, there are some common things. Whenever we want to connect to a specific database, we must create connection. Sorry, first we have to create connection. So create connection between database and our Java application, right? So creating connection between database and Java application requires a class name, database class name, like and URL and username and password. Yes, password. So we need these four fields to connect to any one of the database using JDBC. So you can create connection and connect to the database. But see here, what is happening is when you work on JDBC, so when we work on JDBC, just think, I just want to create a table. What we say, this is, I'll just make it, sorry. So I'll just name it as table name, will be some, say, some emp details, emp data. Okay, so our table name is emp data. So using JDBC, if you want to create a table, you have to write a query called select, create table ID and it's a specific varchar ID with the primary key, and name with some varchar 100 or 150 say, and city with a varchar of say anything varchar 150, anything like that. So we create we write a query to create the table using JDBC. And after writing, so I'll just explain the steps here. First, what we do with JDBC is first sorry, yeah, this is a little bit frustrating. Okay, first we create table with a query, right? First thing is this, and second thing is and we second thing is we write insert query as well to insert data, right? And we write update query to update data, and same way, and do other all select operations to view the data. So understand the scenario here. For creating the table, we must get the connection from the connection class, and yes, execute the statement and check whether the table is created or not. And for the second step, to insert the data also, we get the connection from the connection class, we insert the data and close the connection. And here also we do the same thing to update the data. We write an update query, we get the connection, and we close the connection at last. So here you can see there are some frequent works which are used which we do, like first thing we do is create connection. To do all these operations I'm talking now, we create connection, execute, we create connection. First thing is create connection, and we execute the query, using statement or prepared statement. And after our execution is completed, after the execution is completed, we close the connection. So these are the frequent works we do to execute a query using JDBC. Now we will talk now we have understood what are the what we do regularly with a JDBC here. Now we'll see a scenario of working with Hibernate. Now Hibernate, like you said, it was an ORM tool, that's okay, but we'll discuss something different, what actually ORM tool means. So objects, so we can say when we create a class called emp data, just think we have a class emp data, right? I'll open close it, something like this, and we have fields called string int id maybe, right? And string name, okay, and string city. Like this, we have some fields like this. When we work on Eclipse, this feels more better, but I'm just doing it, just making it, just make you understand how a Pojo class work. what is Pojo class means? A plain Java old object, POJO, Java object, yeah, plain old Java object. So this here we are declaring an int. So we just create a class here, and we map this class variables with Hibernate. So we just create the class. In the JDBC also we do the same thing. When we create a class emp data, we just create these three variables of the particular emp data, and we use naturally we generate the setters and getters to set the value and get the value depending on our requirements. Now when you compare with the JDBC, we are creating the same Pojo classes, and we get the data, setting and getting the data, but we do this all operations frequently, this and this, like I said. But what Hibernate does, I do the same, I create the same employee data class and create these objects, creating this my required fields of the table, and I just map my fields with the Hibernate XML. So the we only the thing is we must map our class emp data variables with our Hibernate XML config, that will be done in a config file. So and using the Hibernate, a few lines of code, just we use only 2 to 3 lines of codes there to create. When we write directly, we can write the select operations, insert operations, update operations, but internally the Hibernate config file will create a table with the name class name emp data. A table will be created internally within within the table, within the database, and with the field names id, name, and city. We use annotations, or we will map our id name and city in the Hibernate config file, and the Hibernate itself will create the table, and at the runtime when you pass the variables, the data will be inserted to your created database table. And I just want to discuss one more thing here. We will discuss about the connection now. So creating connection, executing the query using statement and repair statement, not this. Okay, here we have, just think, I would like to discuss one more advantage of Hibernate. I think you are clear with this thing. So how the database table is created, but we should, I forgot to talk about the connection and the how Hibernate works with the database. Now just think, we are trying to create a project, some XYZ project, or say some bank project using JDBC. So I'm creating a bank project using JDBC. But later on what happened is, okay, when we create a project using JDBC, what happens, we take some with a specific database, right, called, I'll just think, MySQL database, or else we can, no need to go for MySQL, I'll just go for some costly or very expensive thing like Oracle DB. It may be 12G or level G, whatever it may be. So we'll just talk about the Oracle database. So we have created a bank project using JDBC technology with a database called Oracle DB. But at some time, the technologies are being so cheap that databases are getting very cheap. Then the client wanted to shift from his Oracle database to some MySQL data. Want to shift to Oracle to MySQL or any other XYZ database. Here in this case, Oracle Oracle functional operations, for example, like Oracle has a function called row number. So just in simple words, the writing queries and the function names are different, slightly different comparing with MySQL. Something like, how to say it in a simple words, the operation, select operations. For example, let me talk about H2 database. I have came across these things, H2 database and MySQL, to make it the problems, to make sure how the problems are being faced when you shift from JDBC, not sorry, from one database to another database, how the problems will arise when you're using JDBC. Just think, I'm writing a query using H2 database. I want to create a table. Just think, I'm creating a table, the same tables, create table, emp data, and I just want to create ID. So I'll just write here ID number and 19 comma 2. Sorry, this is okay. 19 comma 2, not 19 comma 2, just 19. I'm just specifying the uh, data type of this ID, and the size will be 19. So that is the size. But when you do this in the MySQL, the MySQL supports both ways. For example, I am creating the table in the same way. Create table emp data and the same ID NUMBR number 19. This is also correct, and I'll show you another scenario. You can do in this way also. I have copy pasted it here, and I'm just changing this to decimal. So some people are habit of working with number and decimal. Both are correct to create the ID, but when it comes to H2 database, it only accept number. But at the project level, for the client requirement, we have created table using this decimal. But when I want to change my database from MySQL to H2 database, I'm not talking about Oracle and MySQL here. I'm talking about H2 database and decimal. I have created a project in MySQL. Just think, I have created a project in MySQL, and H2 database is cheap. I just want to change myself from MySQL to H2 database. Now, whereas, just think, forget about this. Okay, so I have created a table. I have created a table operation with ID, decimal, and 19. But when it comes to H2 database, it only supports ID number. I'm just saying an example. So this to just change this again, I have to go to all the H2 database fields and change it to decimal to make my query uh, independent with the database. But if it is one or two, it's easy. But when you compare with a big project, there are plenty of operations within the project, plenty of select queries, plenty of insert queries, plenty of update queries. So you can't go keep on changing all those queries, and you have plenty of time, and time costs and working costs will be happening in the big level projects. So to make this work is, in simple words, guys, I want to just say it in simple words, that when you're creating a project with Oracle, to migrate from Oracle to MySQL, it's very hard using JDBC. But when it comes to Hibernate, so we'll talk about Hibernate now. You just need to pass at the time of the connection between the Hibernate and the Java class. You just need to pass the class name, URL, username, and password of the particular database, and you have to mention what kind of database you are using. Just think that I have developed this project using Hibernate. Just forget about JDBC. Now we'll talk about Hibernate. Now I have created myself a I have created a bank project using Hibernate, and I have created my project using Oracle database, and I want to migrate from Oracle to MySQL. That's very simple in Hibernate, because Hibernate is having its own language called HQL. HQL is a platform in means say it's a database independent query writing language which supports all the database which are present in the current industry. And HQL language is very easy to learn. It's not that hard. But so I think you got the logic why we use Hibernate and why Hibernate is so powerful. Now let me discuss few more things also. Hibernate is something like why if you ask me what kind of projects we can develop using Hibernate and what kind of projects using we can use developing JDBC. See, Hibernate is having its own what we say limits of developing a project, and JDBC is having a limits of developing the project. So when you come to this kind of separation, when you come to this kind of what we say separation of the functionalities of these two operationals like Hibernate and JDBC, so the project managers or our company people will just make a decision to go with Hibernate or JDBC. So in simple words, Hibernate is I just want to say that as I know, Hibernate is not used in large scale big data manipulating. Hibernate is not used in big data structures or big data maintaining or processing big data works. In that case, JDBC is more recommended. So that is I can't say all the limitations in the single class, but Hibernate is having its own limits and JDBC is having its own limits. And Hibernate internally executes or internally works on JDBC statements. Whatever the select operations may be, insert operations may be, update operations it may be, Hibernate internally execute all the JDBC statements, but at runtime there is no need for you to create the table. Okay, usually we can't, there is no need to create tables or write insert query, write update query to work with Hibernate. But when you come to JDBC, we have to specifically write all the queries, all the update queries, all the select queries to retrieve or update or insert the data. But Hibernate do have all these functionalities, but it's completely different. But when you compare with the differences, so these are the differences what I can say. So if you are okay with this, we will discuss more about in the later tutorials. I'll be working on Hibernate videos. There we will learn more about this Hibernate related topics. So it's really great, guys. Thank you very much. We'll meet in the next video.